Hey everybody, it's X, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing my very first Premier Draft of the brand new Murders at Karlov Manor format. Without further ado, let's get into the Pack 1 Pick 1, and as you can see, first and foremost, packs have changed a little bit. There's one less card than there was before in Draft Boosters, now that we're using Play Boosters, and you can randomly get cards that aren't even in the set, like Monologue Tax. Now, Monologue Tax doesn't even do anything in Limited, really, so we're not that interested in that, but it is interesting to bring it up. So taking a peek through this pack here, see what looks powerful. I like Sudden Setback a good amount, some great interaction out of blue. There's also a really aggressive creature out of white with Karlov Watchdog, which I actually have seen and gotten absolutely steamrolled by one time, so I'm actually going to go for that, go for the more aggressive card. This is a 4 mana, 3/2 Vigilance, so it is a little bit high for the mana value, but it stops your opponent from flipping anything on you, and if you are attacking with 3 or more creatures, you're buffing your entire board with +1/+1, whether or not the Watchdog's attacking. So if you can curve out with some of these creatures that provide multiple bodies off of the one card, then you can slam this down turn 4 and immediately get the buff to your whole board. So I like the Watchdog quite a bit. For pack 1, pick 2, we've got a Krenko's Buzz Crusher, just a 4 mana 4/4 flying trample basically, but seems like a solid finisher there. Lots of damage in the sky. It's super evasive too, because even if they have the flying blocker, you get to trample over and still deal some damage, so love that. We've got great cheap interaction with Galvanize. We've got a card that isn't even the set, which is pretty cool, with Treacherous Terrain. It doesn't look particularly good, though. That is a million mana for 1v1 draft formats. Yeah, we'll take the Buzz Crusher here. Solid-looking rare. Pick number 3. Got some really good blue-white detective cards. Granite Witness is pretty insane for a common. 4 mana for a 3/2 Flying Vigilance is already fantastic, but you can also disguise this and then flip it up later for hybrid white or blue mana. So you can put this into just a white deck or just a blue deck, and when you do turn it face up, you get to tap or untap something, which is pretty sweet. So I think this card is fantastic. Another card that's pretty fantastic is Private Eye, buffing all of your detectives with +1/+1, and whenever you draw your second card each turn, target detective can't be blocked this turn. So that works with the clue tokens that you can get in this format that you can sacrifice to draw a card with later. So I'm going to speculate now towards blue and take this Private Eye, so we're either heading towards probably red, white, or red, red, white, or white, blue here. So we want to value white cards above any of those secondary colors since they'll fit in either way. And this is kind of insane odds. We've had 3 non-Murders at Karlov Manor cards in these packs in a row. There's not supposed to be that many. There's only one slot in the pack that can be a card from the list of non-Murders cards. And I think it's like a 10% chance or something like that, like pretty low. We've got Crovan Haunch for white. We've also got Case File Auditor, which I guess if we pick up a lot of enchantments, this will be pretty decent card draw. The new Case card type is an enchantment card type, so maybe that. I think we do lean towards white instead of blue for like the Eliminate the Impossible. I think I'll go for the Crovan Haunch, actually. This seems like a decent little equipment. You can equip it early for +2/+0, but you can also just sack it later and then at instant speed get a couple 1/1 dog tokens out of this thing. So pretty fun, pretty adorable card as well. Pick number 5, we've got 2 copies of Cold Case Cracker out of blue. We've got some pretty mediocre white cards. So I think we do take the Cold Case Cracker heading towards blue-white detectives here. There is some removal in red, but it's kind of expensive removal here with Suspicious Detonation. Red also has Shock and Galvanize. Both of those are commons that are a lot more efficient than Detonation, so I don't think we'll take that particularly highly. Pick number 6, Auspicious Arrival is a fine combat trick. There's also Gadget Technician, which we can play off of just blue or just red. So if we go blue-white or blue-red, we can play this. We just have to disguise it face down. So basically 5 mana for a 3/2 and a 1/1 flyer. Not great, but not terrible. Think I'd rather just take Auspicious Arrival, unless I was specifically blue-red, then I'd be like, okay, Gadget Technician looks good. Pick 7, that's pretty late for a Shock. We're only 2 cards deep into blue here, so we'll keep bouncing between our secondary colors, because Shock is premium cheap removal. It can trade into your opponent's disguise creatures for 3 mana. So they play their card face down as a 3 mana 2/2 with Ward 2, and then for 3 mana you kill it. So one of the only removal spells that can trade evenly into disguise creatures. Pick number 8. I guess Agency Outfitter looks very funny, at the very least. When we play it, we get to search our graveyard, hand, and library for cards named Magnifying Glass and Thinking Cap, and just put them right onto the battlefield. So if we do go blue-white detectives, we get some value there off of that. We just need to draft those other cards. Those are both artifacts. The Thinking Cap is an equipment that's pretty cheap to equip to detectives, and the Magnifying Glass is just a mana rock. Not super great. Pick 9, we got the sudden setback all the way back, so continue down our blue-white direction here with that. Pick 10, Seasoned Consultant is a detective, which is a good creature type for us, but we're not going to be that good at getting the wide board state in white, although we already have 1 copy of Auspicious Arrival, and it's not the kind of card you want a ton of duplicates of. It's just a combat trick, so I guess we'll take Consultant there. On the Job, really good if you can make your board state super wide. Heroic Charge got a big buff. Now it investigates, gives you a clue token as well. Rare draft a Millstone for the collection because it's just cool that you can get that in Murders at Karlov Manor. Alright, pack 2, pick 1. Pretty great cards here. What is this? Ansrag's Rampage. Destroy all artifacts you don't control, then exile the top X card of your library where X is the number of artifacts that were put into graveyards from the battlefield this turn. You can put a creature, exile this way on the battlefield, give it haste, and then return it to your hand. Okay, weird, narrow card. I don't think we're drafting that. We've got Person of Interest if we're pushing back towards red. 2 creatures off the 1 card, so pretty great with our cards like On the Job and Karlov Watchdog, but we've also got a really good aggressive detective in white with the Market Watch Phantom, 2 mana 2/2 that gains flying every time a creature with power 2 or less hits the battlefield under our control. We've also got Case of the Filched Falcon, which is great if we can investigate enough to have 3 artifacts on board. Then we can turn one of our clues into a flyer. I think I'll take the Case. I think it's the coolest card. And I kind of want to head towards blue-white detectives here. It could be pretty fun, especially because we have that Agency Outfitter that's really cute. It's a lot of mana, so it's probably the kind of card that isn't going to end up being that good, but we're early in the format. We're going to try everything out a little bit here before everything's all settled. Pack 2, pick 2, there's the 5-color Niv Mizzet. That's really hard to get to in this format. There's not a lot of mana fixing. No dual lands at common or uncommon. They're all at rare. There are some common lands that can get a mana of any color, but not a lot of them. So we've got Novice Inspector for just a really efficient detective that gives us a clue for great value, or we've got that Granite Witness, which is incredible to flip up later, or just a hard cast as a great flying threat. These are both better than the Cold Case Cracker, so it's one of these 2. They're both fantastic. I think I'm just going to go for the raw efficiency, that cheap mana value, take the Novice Inspector here. Pack 2, pick 3, another card that works excellently with a wide board is the Case of the Gateway Express. This shows off the new Case card type as well, so basically, kind of like a 2-mana sorcery that deals damage to a creature equal to the number of creatures you control. But then it sits around as an enchantment where if you've attacked with 3 or more creatures, then for the rest of the game, your whole board gets +1/+0. You've then solved the case. So pretty cool card, again, for the go wide kind of white deck. It's that or a pretty mediocre detective, so I'll take that Case here. Pack 2, pick 4. Some excellent detectives here. I think I take the Exit Specialist. This thing's pretty absurd when you flip it up. It's a 2/1 that's pretty hard to block. They can't block it with anything with power 3 or greater. And it's going to bounce something back to your opponent's hand, so great tempo play. But there's also the Market Watch Phantom, which keeps jumping to the sky. The Crime Stopper sprite is great as a tempo play, tapping and maybe even stunning an opposing threat while being a good little flyer. And Projector Inspector can dig through your library, drawing a card and discarding a card every time you're playing detectives. So all of these cards would be great for this deck, but I'm going to go for the uncommon here. Pick number 5. There's the Thinking Cap to go with the Agency Outfitter. Realistically speaking, probabilistically, nobody else is that interested in the Thinking Cap, so we should be able to get like 1 copy pretty late. We only really need 1 to go with the Outfitter, so think we could take something else over it, like maybe the Fuss and the Bother. Just a um, flexible split card there. Take out Cold or Vigilante, but I think I'll try out the flip card here. Get the Thinking Cap later. Pick 6, Burden of Proof, little combat trick sort of removal spell. Yeah, your opponent blocks with their big scary creature, you make it a 1/1 and kill it. Or you just shut off its ability to block early. Or you can use this as a combat trick to buff your own detectives. That seems fine for our deck. I guess we take that over the 6-mana detective here, the Hotshot Investigators. Reckless Detective's really good if we were in red-white. But we have kind of chosen our lane here towards blue. I cannot take Thinking Cap over Novice Inspector. Can't really overstate how good it is to have a 2-for-1 this early in the game, a 1/2 that also draws you a card very quickly. Pick number 8. Now we can probably take Thinking Cap, because the only other card that's particularly interesting for us is maybe Call a Surprise Witness, because then we trade off like a Novice Inspector, reanimate it with flying or something, but still a little narrow. We have to wait till we've traded creatures off, or it just sits in our hand. So we'll take the Thinking Cap and make sure we've got something for the Agency Outfitter to pull out of our deck. Got a second copy of Burden of Proof. I mean, we are the Burden of Proof deck. We're like all detectives right now, so this is making one of our opponent's creatures pretty much useless, or it's buffing one of our own, both at instant speed. So we'll take it. And the final pack here, we really just want to take a bunch of good creatures. It looks like we've got a good chunk of non-creature spells. This is a fitting way to start off the format, our first draft being a detective deck for the murder mystery themed set. And again, Eliminate the Impossible, good card, but as I just said before, we really need to take creatures over anything else at this point. That is what we are the lowest on. So let's go ahead and grab a Crime Stopper Sprite, nice flying 3-drop. It's also a detective for that great creature type to go with Private Eye and our double Burden of Proof. Our Thinking Cap as well cares about detectives. Pretty great card on curve. Pack 3, pick 2, Novice Inspector, again upping that creature count. There is an excellent removal spell here, though, with Makeshift Binding, so that is definitely competing with Novice Inspector despite wanting creatures over anything else. But with only 9 creatures in the deck, I think we have to take the Novice Inspector, even though Makeshift Binding is such a good removal spell. Pack 3, pick 3 now. We've got... doesn't look like any creatures. So this makes our instants and sorceries cheaper. If we completely storm off and cast 4 spells in one turn, then we can go crazy, but we can't really do that in draft. Exile a non-land card put into a graveyard from anywhere. Copy it and cast it for free. That's interesting. It's also really hard to cast. Triple blue, not super exciting there. Whenever a detective enters the battlefield or you flip one up, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay, I guess. That or a 6-drop detective. I'll try out this case, I guess. We're the deck for it. So all of our detectives come with a +1/+1 counter as long as this is on the board. If we have 3 or more on board, then we start getting clues alongside any tokens we make. Okay, I probably should have fully read this card first, because the solved thing is not that good for our deck. We don't make that many tokens. So that'll just double up our clue production. Well, here's another finisher, second Agency Outfitter. Suppose we take that over just like a Jaded Analyst. We're not a very good deck for On the Job, because we don't have cards that are spitting out 2 creatures off of 1 spell. We are a very good deck for Projector Inspector. It is a detective, and with almost all of our creatures being detectives, it's going to trigger a lot and really let us sort through our deck, find what we need. And now we're at 23 playables, but we do want some more creatures here. Let's grab another detective with Jaded Analyst over a 5-mana 4/4 non-detective thing. Pack 3, pick number 7. No creatures we're going to play here. We're not dirtling around with mana fixing with Gravestone Strider, so we'll take a Candlestick, but I imagine we probably cut this as well. So we already kind of have to play Thinking Cap. Pick number 8. Magnetic Snuffler picks up an equipment from our grave. When we're sacking our clues, we're putting counters on it. It's kind of slow or whatever. I guess there's a decent counter spell too, but we are looking for creatures. We'll put a Snuffler in here, I guess. Pick number 9, Jaded Analyst number 2. Just the defender most of the time, but when we're sacrificing clues, we get to send it in, or we have the great eliminate the impossible kind of combat trick here. I think I'm still up in that creature count. Let's get an Analyst in here. Pick 10. Or a 2-color deck. We're probably not playing Public Thoroughfare, so I'll just rare draft an Uncommon. Pick 11, I will take the 6-mana Detective. Slap another creature in here. It's like a bounce spell when we play it. Yeah, return a creature to its owner's hand. If we control our own creature, we also get a clue token. Cool card. Alright, so we're a blue-white Detectives deck here. We do look like a weaker version of this deck. It doesn't look like it was that open in our draft pod. We didn't manage to get all those copies of the blue-white common, the 3/2 Flying Vigilance Detective thing. That's what would have really, really improved this deck, I think. So, kind of a pretty medium version of this deck. We'll see how it all plays out, though. Looks like it'll still be fun, still be a pretty cool deck. I'll have a decent artifact count for this case of the Filch Falcon to maybe up the creature count. The Krovod Haunch also sort of counts as creatures making these dog tokens, so we are at like 18 creatures, in a sense. So we could cut our weakest creature out of this deck, which is probably one of the 5 or 6 mana cards. I guess Seasoned Consultant still looks kind of bad in here. Is every creature we have a detective? No, we've got one dog. We've got the Karlov Watchdog, which again doesn't look that great in here. We didn't manage to get any of the token producers. There's one that I really like. It's a 3-mana 1/1, and it spits out a 2/2 detective. Really would have loved to see one of those. I guess because we've only got like the one thinking cap, we can just cut one agency outfitter and not be too super high on the mana curve. And this is still 15 creatures plus Case of the Filch Falcon might make a 4/4 flyer. Krovod Haunch might make some dogs. Bother might make some flyers. Yeah, this seems a-okay. This is not a good deck for on the job. We're not going to have that wide of a board to buff that many creatures with it. This is basically just a mediocre Anthem, right? So it's giving every detective that we play after we cast this card a +1/+1 counter. So it's like an Anthem that doesn't retroactively buff your earlier creatures. An Anthem effect is an effect that just gives your whole board +1/+1. So this is even weaker than just give the whole board +1/+1. And cards like that haven't even been that good in draft lately regardless. So I'm not that interested in it. I just also don't think we're actually making that many clue tokens or 2/2 tokens or anything like that to trigger that solved part and get any extra value there. Like, we're making some clues, but that's kind of it for token production. I guess some dogs, maybe. Certainly not super good at it. So let's cut these 3, and then we just need to cut one more card to wrap up this deck and get into that gameplay. What are we cutting then? Maybe the Case of the Gateway Express, although we're pretty low on actual removal. Again, similar to many of the other cards we've been cutting, we would cut this because we're not good at making a super wide board of creatures, but I think we're low enough on removal. Maybe we do keep it. We've got the Sudden Setback for a temporary removal spell and the Burden of Proof for a combat tricky kind of removal spell, 2 of those. So it's not like we have 0 removal, but I think it's low enough we want to keep the Case in. Maybe Fuss and Bother is just inefficient enough on both halves of the card to cut that. And I like the Bother. You know what? Just in the interest of getting into the gameplay, it is the first draft of the brand new format. Let's just go for a 41 card special. Screw it. That's good enough for me. 17 lands, 24 non-lands. We have not cut the deck down to the most efficient build possible. There's one of these cards that should be cut, but it's good enough for me. We will call it a deck here. Alright, here's a look at our completed deck list for today. This is going to be a blue-white detectives deck. We've got a lot of good value on these novice inspectors investigating pretty frequently to get us some clue tokens and dig through our deck there. We've got some more investigation with Case of the Filched Falcon, and with enough other clue tokens just randomly sitting on the board, we might be able to make a big bird off of this. Basically, every creature in the deck is a detective, so cards like Private Eye buff our entire board, as well as cards like Burden of Proof become flexible combat tricks that we can use to give our creature +2/+2, or turn theirs into a 1/1. We've got an agency outfitter at the top of the curve that's going to find a thinking cap to put onto itself, or if we just draw the thinking cap early, it's pretty cheap to equip because everything in the deck is a detective. It's a pretty cute, pretty synergistic deck here, and we've got like an entire agency of detectives at our disposal, so we'll see how it all plays out as we head into the gameplay. Here we are for game one with Jaded Analyst into Private Eye. Decent curve, but the Analyst just a defender until we can start sacrificing some clue tokens, so now that we've drawn into a Seasoned Consultant instead, we'll play that first. Ooh, rare here. Case of the Stashed Skeleton. They're going to get a 2/1 skeleton that is suspected. And once that skeleton is gone, once they control no suspected skeletons, they solve this case and they can sack it to search the library for any card, shuffle, put into their hand. Really nice 2-for-1. So a 2-mana 2/1 menace that can't block, and when that creature dies, they also get to just cast a Demonic Tutor. Grab anything they want out of their deck. That is a very nice card. For now, that's just going to beat me down, this spooky skeleton here. There's a face down card, so a disguise card. Triggers their Snarling Gorehound, giving them a Surveil, so they will mill a swamp off the top of their library. Attack in with 3 menacing damage. I was going to say 3 menacing threats, but 3 menacing points of damage. Turn 3, we can play the Specialist face down to bounce something. We can play the Inspector to start filtering through our deck. We can play the Private Eye to start buffing our board. Private Eye Inspector is actually a really sick combo. Like that quite a lot. Really need to start finding ways to block all this menace if we can. But we can only play one creature this turn regardless of what we do. I guess we play the Private Eye. It's going to give us the beefiest blocks possible here. 2/4 and a 3/3 could get them to stop attacking. I think that's where we need to be here. We need to try to grind things out a little against all the evasive damage they have coming at us. Slow this game down a bit if we can. Soul Search. That is a very good discard spell. They make me exile the best card in my hand, and if they choose a 1-mana or less card, they also get a 1/1 flyer. Our hand's pretty loaded here, so I don't even know what I would be the most disappointed with them exiling. That's probably it, because the Inspector Private Eye combo is really nice. Plus the Inspector gets to do some digging for our lands. Yeah, it's awkward. And then now, because they looked at our whole hand, when I play the Specialist face down, they know exactly what's going on. Still better than just playing the Analyst right now. But it's not... definitely not as good as it would have been if they didn't look at my entire hand. They're down to 2 cards. And our board can currently block decently here, so we might be in a good position to grind things out. Ooh, not against Karlov Watchdog. Buffs the entire board when they attack with everybody. And now we can't use our Specialist during their turn. We can't use this as a bounce spell and a combat trick at the same time. We have to use this as a sorcery speed bounce spell. Yep, Watchdog definitely putting in work right now, so... I guess I get to kill the Gorehound without losing a creature, so we probably do that. But we have to take 6 if that's the play. 10 life is not the end of the world. It's not ideal, but we get to keep our whole board for future turns this way. Burden of Proof. I can still cast spells, right? Yeah, I just can't flip up my card, but I could still cast a Burden of Proof. That feels good. What if I start turning the corner and getting aggressive myself? I'm at 10 life. I can make their suspected skeleton just a 1/1 with no text with Burden of Proof. I don't really want to bounce it because then they get to Demonic Tutor. Does this keep it as a skeleton? Base power toughness 1/1 and it can't block detectives. Okay. So yeah, it doesn't change its creature type, so it'll still be a skeleton just sitting there hitting me for 1 a turn. Yeah, this might be bold, but I guess I'm 1 mana off from actually doing both of these things. Shoot. I still feel like I do this. I hit for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 this way. If we just hit them with 2 swings, they're just dead. They crack back for 4. It's kind of bold. I feel like this would definitely be the play if we hit a land instead of this this outfitter here. Then I'd go like land, play specialist, and burden the skeleton. Send in with the team. This might be extra bold since we didn't have the mana to actually play 2 spells that turn. Face down card is the play, so it might be a 2 mana disguise card to flip up here. If they're choosing to play that instead of the 4 mana card. That is still not a land, which is pretty bad because it's a 6 mana spell. They got us really bad, making us discard our 3/2 that draws and discard cards. That would have been incredibly helpful here. They're at 10 life. Gotta be holding up on blocks now. Just attack with the 3/3 and hold for blocks. Ready to burden proof something that's trying to lethal us. Okay. Again, I'd be feeling really comfortable here with a land because then we play an additional blocker and hold up Burden of Proof. Or we could counterspell with Sudden Setback. See what they got here. Go to 2 on board. Or sorry, go to 4 on board. Take 2, I should say. No tricks. Sure. I'm at 4. With lethal damage on the crackback, if I throw a Burden of Proof onto a detective, I have 7 power on the board. So I could end step throw Burden of Proof. Ooh, my god. We're at 1 life now, and they're at 10. Never mind. No longer threatening a lethal crackback if we bounce their only blocker. What I was going to say there is if they stayed at 7 life, it might be worth end step Burden of Proofing one of our creatures. So that we have 7 power on the board, so that when it gets to our turn, if we hit the land for sudden setback, we just lethal them here. Okay, 1/3 flyer, sure. Oh no, they sacked the skeleton, so now they can use this as a tutor. So if they have anything that just does a damage when they cast it, we're gonna die. They just sack the case and do that next turn. Okay, is there any way we can find lethal here? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We untap, we set back the onlooker. Nope, they go to 3. I can't even Burden of Proof the flyer. Because it still has flying. It'll just be a 1/1 flyer, which is still enough to kill me. So I do still just Burden of Proof my own creature here for extra damage at this point. Because it's not going to help me not die to the onlooker. And we just don't find lands. So I'm just dead on board. This is 7 damage on board, so we could convince them to block here. Because we're threatening to kill them with a +3/+3 trick. But they don't block. Alright. Alright, well, probably still die anyway, even if we could sudden set back, because they have the tutor for anything in their deck, but that was just poor mana that game. We really did not draw lands. Still got really close, so happy with how the deck played out in the end, even if it is going to be a loss. Got them down to 3 with some rough draws. Here we are on the play for game number 2. Probably do just want to curve out here despite the flippability on the specialist being so good. When we have the Case of the Gateway Express and Karlov Watchdog, both incentivizing us to have as many creatures on board as quickly as possible. So we're giving up a little bit of bounce value with the specialist here to just get the board wide quickly. Crime Stopper Sprite getting decent value here, letting specialist get in for damage. Happy with that. And then probably have to case whatever their best creature is on turn 5, which is hopefully not just the Gravestone Strider at that point. Alright, Unscrupulous Agent does Stone Cold nothing to our hand here, so that feels decent. Does still block Exit Specialist. Actually play another Flyer here. That way the turn that I play Watchdog, I get an immediate trigger off of it. And I can just attack past these ground troops if I need to. So if I want to case next turn, I still hit for 5. Because even if I had a Watchdog on this board, if I attacked with these two and Watchdog on the next turn, they could still kill Specialist at the cost of a single 1/3. Alright, there's a face down card. I could kill the face down card with this case and still beat down for 5 in the sky, which seems decent. I mean, they're stuck on 3 mana here, so it'll be a little while till they play anything super good for me to shoot with this anyway. Sure. I like the way they do that, where it like triple shoots it. Ooh, that was probably pretty good for us, because we killed their mana fixer. They did top deck a 4th land anyway, but we stopped them from tutoring for whatever basic land they wanted, and getting a 5th land this turn to their hand. Alright, there's Slice from the Shadows on our 3/3 flyer, which is actually really annoying because now the Watchdog isn't going to get there anymore. I mean, it will eventually, just not yet. Not till our next turn's attacks, and that's only if they don't kill one of our creatures again. They top decked the green source. So we managed to kill their card that could search for any basic, and then they just drew 2 basics in a row. Sad days. Oof, the Unscrupulous Agent copy number 2 to get rid of the 6-drop in our hand. Couldn't really play around that. I mean, we had to play land 5, so if we top decked land 6, we could play that next turn. Ooh, well, there's a new 6-drop. We've got multiple reasons to want to attack with the whole board, and now we have Fuss as a combat trick too, if it looks like it'll line up well to put a counter on our whole board. Because now, from this point on, our whole board's going to get +1/+0. Oh my god, and the Fuss is going to just go wild here. We're going to kill both of these, we're going to kill both of these, and we're not going to lose a single creature. Well, that worked real well. It's also mana efficient because we get to use the clue token in the same turn. Yeah, they're just going to concede to that. Incredible work from Fuss. +1/+1 counter on the whole board for 3 mana. Actually looked pretty dang decent there, and we are 1-1 heading into game 3. Alright, here we are on the play for game 3. Novice Inspector into Projector Inspector, which is actually a perfect mana curve because Novice Inspector gives you something to do turn 1 and turn 2 with all of your mana. We just crack a clue if we don't draw a 2-mana creature. And we do not draw a 2-mana creature. red-green here. Thought I would mention, because you definitely need to zoom in on those lands to tell. Down to 18. Let's get Projector Inspector going here. Find another land, good draw. Find a 6-drop, solid draw. Probably have to discard a 5 or 6 mana card here, though, off of this, rather than a land. So we've got 5 lands at the ready. What's our curve going to be? We're going to go Cold Case Cracker, Snuffler, Investigators. I almost prefer Fuss Bother to Snuffler, though. I mean, it's just a 5 mana 4/4, really. Yeah, I think we get rid of the Snuffler. And then next turn, when we play the Cold Case Cracker, then we get another loot. So if we hit like the 6th land, we probably just discard 1 at that point. Find a Crowvad Haunch. I would rather play the Flyer here, and I'm going to do it pre-combat, so if they go for a removal spell on Inspector during combat, we've still gotten the value off of the Enter the Battlefield effect here. I guess there's also an argument for doing it post-combat, because that way we have Fuss open for the +1/+1 counters against a trick. So I actually don't know. There's arguments either way. This does have to attack, so... I mean, worst case scenario, they have a combat trick here, and then... Alright, that is a pretty bad case scenario. I was going to say, worst case scenario, they have a combat trick here, and they have to spend their whole turn dumping some mana into that, but it was a 1 mana trick, and it still left them with a creature behind, so it's pretty good. Pick your poison, make me sack a clue. I don't really mind that. Alright, now they've got a 2/2 to block on board. Well, Fuss might just be worth it here. We don't even know if we're going to hit the 6 mana for Bother on turn 6 regardless, and we can just play Investigators turn 6. We've already got a good 6 mana play, so... yeah, let's just send in and Fuss. Feels good. Alright, well that is not at all what I thought I was going to be doing with this card, but that's 2 games in a row. That has been fantastic. Actually really undervalued just +1/+1 counter on all your attacking creatures as an instant little combat trick. That is really good. Speaking of cards that are really nice, A Killer Among Us is such a fun design. So they've just made 3 different creatures. They made a human, they made a merfolk, they made a goblin. One of these cards is secretly the killer, where at instant speed, they can sacrifice this and make the attacking killer get +3/+3 in Death Touch. So one of these is sneaking in as a 4/4 with Death Touch next turn. And I need to try to pick which one it is. Watch me pick the correct one. I bet it's the merfolk. That's what I think. The human looks too innocent, and the goblin looks too much like a killer, so it's the merfolk. That's the killer. Anyways, we trigger Analyst, and now we get to send in the whole board. They can't do this on blocks to get the +1/+1 counters. They have to do it on attacks. So we've got a really good combat there. There's a red herring. Send in the red herring. Send in the human. Well, that makes me imagine the human is the killer. No! I was like, I feel like everybody would choose the human because the human looks the most innocent. Actually, I don't even think we block at all here. We don't even put our creatures at risk of a combat trick. We just try to crack back for lethal. I was thinking they were going to go for the level 2 mind game here, where like you choose the human because the human's always going to look the most innocent. That's the instinctual one to choose. But then the level 2 mind game is your opponent's always going to think that you chose the human because the human looks innocent, so you choose the merfolk, actually. And you never choose the goblin. I mean, that goblin's a killer right there. That's the killer among us. Red is always sus. But I was wrong. I failed the mind game. May have won the game in the end, but I failed the Killer Among Us mind game. Here we are for game number 4. We are 2-1 with a great start. Novice Inspector into Analyst, into Private Eye. is quite a curve. Very aggressive for blue-white. What is this? A 1/1 flyer. Yep, 5 other lines of text, but it's literally just a 1/1 flyer. Let's go. Okay. There is a 2-mana counterspell in this format. 2-mana counter unless you pay 2. We could play around that with a thinking cap for the turn, or just draw a card attack with Analyst, but I mean, I'm just going to go for the best play. The odds of them having the counter are much lower than them not having the counter, even when they're on color for it. Steam Core Scholar. This card is fantastic. A 3-mana 2/2 Flying Vigilance is already great by limited standards, but it also comes with card selection, draw 2, discard 2, and if you discard an instant, sorcery, or flyer, then it's actually card advantage, because you draw 2, but only discard 1. Really incredible card. Fantastic cheap rare. Luckily, we're still in a great position to be beating down here, especially since we can sack the clue, send in the Analyst, and give somebody unblockability if we want. I don't even think we care about unblockability right now, though. Can Crime Stopper Sprite get a 3/3 flyer on my board, and then the Scholar can't attack in anymore, and we tap it down from blocking? I don't get to attack the Analyst this turn anymore, but get more power to beat down with next turn, which feels good. They're down to 12. Is this a detective too? It is. It's a weird detective. You don't want to hire this dude. He's weird. Cold Case Cracker now, so they can trade into our flyer. Trigger Jaded Analyst and Private Eye, and then have Burden of Proof up. Feels good here. Oh my god, and we draw Case of the Gateway Express? So let's give our 2/3 unblockability so they can't just kill it for free. And then they only have trades on board, and then we can Burden of Proof to ruin those trades. And then I can post-combat Case of the Gateway Express if I didn't need to Burden of Proof, and it will still flip, because then 3 or more creatures will have attacked this turn. This is just fantastic right now. Go for the double block. That is pretty smart from our opponent, because now even if I Burden of Proof, I don't save my Private Eye. I just trade Private Eye and Burden of Proof for their 2 creatures, because I make my Private Eye a 5/5, or I make one of these a 1/1. Either way, a 1/1 and 2/2, that's 3 damage. A 5/5, that's 5 damage. So we case post-combat instead of Burden of Proof then. Since at least this way, since our Private Eye is going to die either way, this still kills just as many creatures, but it also gives the +1/+0 to the whole board for the rest of this game. It's Makeshift Binding for the flyer, and they gain some life too. This has been phenomenal. Put some life gain on the enchantment-based removal in the format. Got an Exit Specialist, was 1 mana to equip. 1 to equip, 3 mana to play Specialist, seems decent. Guess that is the play. Put them down to 6. And here's a 2/2. Sorry, a 3/2. So we've solved the murder on the Orient Express. Hazda Vigilante. Just a 4/4. We just put it back in their hand and they're dead on board. Big ups from Exit Specialist. Let's go. We gave a 4/4 uppies. Flew it around like a helicopter. Alright, here we are on the play. 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop. That is some Sesame Street magic right there. We're the count this game, and it's going to be a great one. The Jaded Analyst is going to sit there doing nothing. He's just reading books. But he's going to the board. He's adding to it. There's Homicide Investigators at the top of the curve. Or Hotshot Investigators. Listen, it's a big word. It starts with H. I'm just going to fill in the blank there. Zero work done from Crime Stopper Sprite here, but that's fine. It's still a 2/2 flyer on curve. Tap the Analyst. He deserves it. Just filing away. Ooh, Inside Source. That's the card I was talking about. One of my favorite commons so far in the set. It's really early still, but this card has been super impressive. A 1/1 and a 2/2, and it has a little extra ability that matters now and then. You can buff that 2/2 with +2/+0 Vigilance, so card is very good. Play that Watchdog to set up a really good attack next turn, and just hit in the sky. And next turn we probably crack the clue so the Analyst can get in and play another Novice Inspector. And then by attacking with 3 or more creatures, all our creatures have at least 3 toughness, so they have to double block, lose the 1/1 and the 2/2 to kill something, depending on what they get to cast here for 4 mana. Hopefully it's nothing too beefy. It's probably like Sudden Setback or something here. The counter spell that puts it back on top of my library. They can also choose one of my permanents and put it back on top of my library, so that's a little annoying. Like, even if I don't cast a spell right now to try to play around it a little bit, it could be valuable. And I could definitely be wrong. It's still really early in the format. The only thing that I am thinking of that card being like, it could be that, is because I have that card in my deck. If I didn't have that card in my deck, then I don't know what it could be here. And it could be anything. I mean, that card's uncommon, so it's more likely to be something else anyway. Oh, it's the Eliminate the Impossible. That's not bad for me. All my creatures are still alive right now? Yeah, that's not bad at all. Okay, well, we take that. Play another Inspector, and kind of awkwardly, I think I should use this for tempo and mana efficiency. Just draw the card, even though it's giving up on getting another Jaded Analyst attack. Because I'm just going to spend 6 mana on Hotshot Investigators next turn. There's no way I'm going to crack a clue instead of playing a 4/4 next turn. I don't have a particularly good target for this, though. I just bounce their Analyst. I guess I could bounce my own Inspector, so I can replay and investigate twice. That could be cute. We're enough in the aggressive seat here, though. I think I'm supposed to just bounce the Analyst. Although with this amount of mana flood, there's a very real argument for just picking up our Novice Inspector to replay it. If I bounce Jaded Analyst, they have 3 power on their board. They can double block Watchdog and kill it, and then take the rest of the damage. That's like their best block, though. Yeah, no, I think this is a little rough, but their blocks are really not very good without that 3/2. And they're just going to concede, so I guess it is worth it in the end. We do have a pretty monumentally wide board state, and that really, a game that showed off the power of that Karlov Watchdog so good when you get those battalion triggers going. So real nice stuff from our detective agency. Once again, we are now 4-1, where I love to be. We are at least breaking even out of this draft, and we'll get to play another draft of Murders at Karlov Manor basically for free. Cost 1,500 gems to enter. We got 1,400 gems and 3 packs. So pretty equivalent value, even if you don't care about your collection. But we've still got 2 more games at least, even if I lose both of them. So let's see if we can't keep it up here. Maybe get a few more wins. Maybe get far in the money out of this draft. Here we are for game number 6. We are on the draw here rather than on the play. Hand's a little bit slower than what we've had, because we've had a lot of hands with the Novice Inspector opening that's been great, but I think it still looks like a pretty good hand here. do definitely need to hit at least one land. If we do, we can cast everything in the hand except the investigators. So it's really one land and we're golden. Yeah, let's just get the analyst down. As long as we have one creature on board, we can kill their tunnel tipster with the case of the Gateway Express, although I don't know if I can convince myself to do that morally. I mean, look at this thing. It's unbelievably adorable. If I don't kill it here, I'm just playing in a face-up exit specialist, so I'm so sorry, tunnel tipster. But I feel like getting rid of this before it gets any +1/+1 counters is good. It's going to slow them down, getting rid of their mana ramp, and it's going to get rid of this creature that potentially turns really big. Uh-oh. When they start exiling creatures from their graveyard, we are going to get overrun quickly by detectives, which is super rude, because that's supposed to be our deck plan. Well, at this point, missing on 2 land draws in a row? 2 or 3. We need to just start playing cards. Oh, this is really bad. I probably should have played an equipped Thinking Cap instead of holding up Burden of Proof here. Got a Magnifying Glass to investigate? Yeah, I should have just Thinking Capped. I'm not going to burden anything. They have nothing to burden. Well, we missed a point of damage. Because I got excited about my 2-mana instant speed enchantment. That doesn't do anything right now. Mill 3. They can return all lands from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped, but they've milled enough to, if they have any collect evidence cards that exile cards from their grave, like Surveillance Monitor, this exiles cards from their grave with mana value 4 or greater, that's when they start triggering the chalk outlines and going to town. Speaking of going to town, Private Eye is going to take us all the way to the market, please? Unless their last card in hand is a counterspell. It could be. I guess it's not that big of a deal if it is, because that would mean that it's not something that triggers the chalk outlines, at least. Sudden Setback. Okay, so it sort of is. I'll keep that on top. 3 mana is enough to replay this, play this as a creature, use the Burden of Proof. Wow, they still have nothing to trigger the chalk outlines. This game's looking solid for us. I mean, as soon as they hit something that triggers these, we're going to have some trouble breaking through their board state, but for the here and now, for like right now, we're doing fine. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't really do anything when they sacrifice it. They've already got infinite mana right now compared to us. Alright, that could be an issue, but I can make it a 1/1 if it is something that flips into a massive threat. I could just play Watchdog and they have to flip it up right now and show me exactly what it is before I even declare an attack. It's an interesting option, but I think with Burden of Proof in hand, I'm okay to let them flip it and then just burden it. We'll see. This could be the wrong play. It might be better to play Watchdog and force them to flip pre-combat. Nope. This works super well. This is so fine. Alright, they've just got a 1/3 on board. At this point, we're just going for damage. We're just hard casting specialist. And then playing Watchdog, attacking with everybody, buffing the whole board. Uh-oh. I get scared whenever anybody hovers over anything. I wish I could just turn that off. I don't have to see the hovering. I don't have to see them looking at the graveyard and get worried about them triggering chalk outlines. At this point, they've gone so long without triggering chalk outline that if they do it now, we're still in a decent position to just keep hitting them in the sky. Sure, they've got the 2/2s we can't really get them a specialist anymore, but I can still poke them for 3 a turn, so pretty great position regardless. They didn't trigger the outlines, though, so we do get to just play the golden Karlov Watchdog and go crazy here. Fantastic card. What a good boy. This is a pretty intimidating dog here, but that's okay. Good boys come in all shapes and sizes. Well, that was probably a very disappointing game for our opponent. I imagine they had at least like 10 ways to trigger the chalk outlines in their deck, and they just did not see a single one. They went for Spice, and they got punished pretty badly there. They just could not find anything to interact with their graveyard. This card works with Graveyard Recursion, cards that pick your creatures up, put them back into your hand from your grave. It works with the Collect Evidence mechanic that lets you exile the creatures from your grave. There's plenty of cards to pick up creatures from grave or to collect evidence, and they just couldn't find anything. I mean, they found one, they milled it. Yeah, big bummer game for our opponent, but I guess we'll take it, because I was real scared those mana issues were going to come bite us in the butt, and we were really lucky for our game where we got stuck on mana to be the game where our opponent got stuck with 2 dead cards on board that just didn't help at all. Maybe even 3. I mean, Magnifying Glass ended up drawing them several cards, but didn't really affect the board, so that was a bit of a dead draw as well for them. We are now 5 wins in. We are officially in the money, spectacular spot, getting more gems than we paid into the event and keeping all of our cards and getting 4 more packs. Super sweet, super awesome place to be. But we'll see how the final record ends up as we head into game number 7. Here we are on the play for game number 7. I don't really think this hand is keepable. Burden of Proof isn't really removal or a combat trick unless we have creatures on our board. So this doesn't really do anything. Fuss doesn't do anything if we don't have creatures on board. And then we have 2 6-drops. So like we have 2 cards that don't work unless we immediately draw cheap creatures, and 2 cards that don't work till turn 6 period at the earliest. Kind of have to mulligan that, sadly. This is even worse. There's 3 blue spells and no island. There's a combat trick with no creatures to use it with. Gotta mulligan to 5 here or gamble on drawing an island immediately when we're not even on the draw, we're on the play. So we don't draw a card on the first turn. Alright, unfortunate start here, but we've got enough cards in our deck that investigate, like Novice Inspector, Auspicious Arrival. This could be fine. It might not be a death sentence here. We'll see, though. It's certainly not ideal. Certainly our opponent is already favored just from mulligans. I'd go as far to say heavily favored rather than just favored even. Well, we'll see. Opponent starts with the 1 mana 1/1 flyer. 1 mana 1 to investigate, looking premium right now. Attacks right into that, gets right past it, and it drew us a card. Exit Specialist, solid card. But I've got a Novice Inspector that can trade with that, and it already drew me a card. So that feels good. Could also just play the Case and shoot it for 1 damage. Could also do that to their flyer. You know, with the Auspicious Arrival in my hand that's going to do literally nothing if I don't have a creature on board, I think I shoot the Specialist here. An Auspicious Arrival we can use to kill their 3/3. Anything that's a 3/3 or smaller we can kill with this combat trick, and then draw another card. Alright, that's a 3/3 or smaller. 1/1 and a 2/2. They can double block Inspector and we still win the fight. Or we hold off here. We kind of have to hold off, because if I attack in, it's so easy for them to just take 1 and go to 17. The problem with holding off is if they have any counter, we're super dead, but if we don't cast this Arrival and draw another card, we're also super dead because we're a little flooded here. We need to draw into action off of the clue token. Alright, let's see. We lose to pretty much everything now. If it's a counterspell, combat trick, anything like that, they just win this interaction and then the game, because we have no more gas right now. Okay, they had nothing. So we are still digging and hoping here. Burden of Proof's a good draw. Plains is definitely not. So we can block and Burden of Proof the face down now, just taking 2 damage a turn. Still keeping this Novice Inspector on board. This thing has gone through everything with us. No! Well, it's still on board, but we don't get to block and Burden of Proof here. Down to 13. Uh-oh. Oh, it's just the 1/1 flyer again. So I guess they get to investigate here and get a clue. That's pretty good. Draw a card there. Oh, whenever any creature they control. Oh boy, so they just draw 3? We're already down cards from the mole, and now they've just got a 3-for-1 there. That is good draw. Speaking of good draw, Novice Inspector is a good draw. And it gives us good draw. Ooh, Bother. That's kind of nuts here, right? Like, we're not using Fuss, we're using Bother, but Bother's looking good. This is going to trade into both of their Mistway Spies and leave another 1/1 behind, and we Surveil to mill any lands we have on top of our deck. And look for some more gas, look for some more action. Is this a sorcery? It is a sorcery, sadly. So we don't get to surprise kill all of their Mistway Spies. Still don't think we're favored because they got the 3 clue tokens there, but if they didn't get the 3 clue tokens, this draw might be enough to have put us in the lead. Here, I think, like, the game's not over, we're still in it, but we're certainly still not favored at this point. This solves if my opponent attacks me with 3 creatures? This card's stupid good. Oh my god, we don't even have to flip this thing. Wow. Alright, well, that's pretty sweet to know. I guess I could burden their Sprite. That way my 3/1/1s trade into all 3 of their flyers. Take 1 less damage this turn. That feels a little risky, though, because they have so much mana and they're about to draw 3 more cards. It's so easy for them to just play like a 4/4 or 5/5 or something, and then us to not have interaction for that. Or a 3/3 flyer. That works, too. Oh, no, it's a detective, though. Oh, thank goodness. Okay. It only buffs detectives you control. If this was a card that came out in like 2009 or earlier, this would be +2/+2 to a detective or make it a 1/1. But since it's a new card, it only buffs detectives you control, so we're still fine to use it here. All right. Now we bother. Wait, what? Oh, okay. They only solve during our end step, so even though it triggered... Well, not triggered. Even though it met that condition of having 3 or more creatures attacked, we didn't hit our end step to solve it. Okay. That's good to know. Good to know. Card is not as busted as I thought. Ooh. Well, this is kind of sad. If I keep Projector Inspector on top, I don't even draw it because I search my library for my Thinking Cap when I play the Outfitter. I mean, we still have to play Outfitter next turn for more flying blockers, so we do this because it's better than milling the Inspector. Shuffling it back into our library is better than putting it in our graveyard because it'd be a good draw later. And then we pass, I guess. Because I can just play this land next turn if I want to. So we know we're drawing Outfitter. I guess we're going to play this land no matter what, right? I'm just going to play the land, and then we're going to... Because then we can Outfitter and play Magnifying Glass in the same turn. Or not Magnifying Glass, Thinking Cap. What is this? What is this? Hello, excuse me? Creatures with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. Well, now our Agency Outfitter is no longer getting us out of this because it can't block any of their creatures. Shoot, 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 shoot. Why aren't Thopters detectives? We do this, we take 3 damage. I think I need to keep 1 Thopter so that I can put a Thinking Cap on it and have a 2/3 flying blocker, since my 4/3 flying blocker is now irrelevant. Yeah, I have to keep a Thopter here. So, yeah, do that, I guess. Take 3. The rough part, too, is these are both detectives, so they can buff them with the inside source for extra damage, so I'm pretty sure we're dead now. We're taking 3, 4, 5 damage on board and going to 2? And this outfitter doesn't block at all. It's in my library, right? Yeah. Just in case I had a just complete lapse in my memory and it somehow got ditched into my graveyard. Gotta check there. Oh, it puts it right on the board. That's kind of sweet. But at the same time, I don't have the 2 mana to equip it, or the 3 mana to equip it to a Thopter. Well, Agency Outfitter can't block anything, so there's no reason to put it on there. The Inspector can. Uh-oh. Do they have the stun 2 things? Yeah, that'll get us. I actually think that would have been worse for us if they stunned the Thopter, but I guess in this case I now have to chump block with the Thopter before I can even put the cap on it, and then I've got no outs to clearing out the flyers. I guess I don't have to. It's 6 damage on their board? No, it's 7 if they tap inside source. They didn't tap inside source though, so that's 6 damage, so I can go to 1 and still be here. But for what reason? I'll be at 1 life facing multiple unblockable creatures. I mean, I can block one of them with a 2/3 Thopter next turn, or a 2/4 Thopter. No, it's a 2/3, right? Plus and plus 2? Yeah. I can block one with a 2/3 Thopter next turn and then take Mega Lethal, so yeah, it doesn't really matter what I do here at this point. Let's just go to 1. Oof. If Delny was not enough to get us, they had the Ezram backup plan. Investigate 2 more times and they can start sacking those clues for Vigilance, Lifelink, or Hexproof. So even if I had removal, they have 5 turns of Hexproof on this card if they need it. Alright, well, we are very dead on board. So 5 and 2 it is. We did get to stay in there quite a while on that mull to 5, so still a respectable showing from a rough start, but not going to be able to turn that into a victory there. We are 5 and 2 heading into round number 8. Here we are for round 8 on the draw. We have a turn 1 Novice Inspector. We can draw the card off of it on turn 2, then play and equip a Haunch turn 3. I guess that's a mana curve. I think I'm actually yet to even cast the Krovod Haunch, weirdly. Red Herring. Come on in, friend. Welcome to my face. Ooh, another Novice Inspector. Now, my hand's good enough already. I don't really need to draw the next card, so I would rather just play this Inspector and the Haunch and still be mana efficient for the turn this way. And I could just double block the Red Herring now. I lose a 1-2 to kill their 2-2. Which is, like, maybe not incredible because I have a Watchdog coming up, but still feels like a good enough trade in my favor. It's worth the double block here. Ooh. Well, I mean, the fact that these both investigated for a clue means this is still not bad for me, but it's certainly disappointing with a Watchdog coming up. My island. No. That might actually matter. We do have a 6-drop in our hand. Ooh, Projector Inspector. Well, now we found something to do turn 3, because this is 4 mana, right? Yeah, to get the 2 1/1s off of it. 2 to sack, 2 to get the 1/1s, so waiting for a 4th land for that. Let's Projector Inspector. I guess I don't have a good option for what to discard. I imagine I'm still supposed to do it. Because if I hit, like, a 6-drop or a 5-drop, it's so much better to have milled that out of the way with the Inspector than to have just drawn that naturally next turn. So this still, like, helps dig for a land, sort of, in that way, in that sense. Yeah, and, like, Seasoned Consultant's not a particularly good draw, so we just ditched that. Like, it's fine. what we're really looking for land for. So just mill a non-land to look for land for feels valuable. The only way that drawing and discarding would have not played out super well is if we literally hit land for. Then it's like, well, I guess we get rid of fuss bother. Uh-oh. Well, that didn't work out. We dug extra, still did not find land for. Now I have a combat trick that does nothing. Come on, land for. Come on. Perfect. All right, a turn off, sadly, but we still get there. We're going down to 12. We're still fine. Our opponent's on 3 mana as well, so it's not like they've hit every land drop and they're just going to blow us out of the water here. They're definitely in the lead by a good margin, but if they had curved out and never missed a land drop, we'd probably just be dead by now. So we're both having a little bit of issues here, but this thing's looking good. Give their 1/1 menace and surveil every turn now, looking for that land, milling a 4-drop. Yeah, good stuff from the clandestine meddler. Find a burden of proof and find land number 5. Would I rather get a single watchdog, a 3/2 vigilance, or get 2 1/1s off of Krovod Haunch? I think I would rather get the 2 1/1s, because if I play the watchdog at this point, I'm not blocking anything anyway, but if I make the 1/1s, I trade them into the 3/2, and that feels fine. This is instant speed. Plus I gain the life by making the 2 1/1s. This is a food equipment. Cool, cool flavor there. Okay, they did hit their 4th land, so now they're milling the 5th land. This is going to trigger that blood spatter analysis quite a bit. If they have 5 creatures die... Oh, whenever 1 or more creature dies, you get 1 counter on it. So they didn't get a counter per creature dying. So it only has 2 counters still. But if they get 5, they get to return a creature from grave to hand. That's pretty good. So it's early game removal, and then graveyard recursion late. Pick up their best threat. Solid. 3 1/1 flyers or 1 3/2 watchdog with 2 different combat tricks to hold up. I think because we have 2 combat tricks we can use here, we want to hold them up and not play the bother. That looks like removal. Double black. Certainly is. That would have made bother way better. That's actually super bad. Yeah, these don't do anything now. Dang. And I can take 1 less damage here. Oh, if they do that, then burden of proof looks fine. Stopping 2 damage. Alright, I need straight action here, bother. Well, we found an outfitter. Let's play next turn. It's a little bit of action. We're at 8 life, though. And they just keep top decking action as well. It's insanely bad. Go to 6 here. Blood spatter analysis is at 4. So next turn when my outfitter kills an attacker, they get to pick up any creature from their grave. Yeah. Game's looking over. And they even get the juggler to insta-trigger the analysis here and kill our outfitter. That's mega gross. I could not have killed all their suspected creatures, though I only had 3 blockers. I would have needed 4 to block 2 creatures with menace. Guess I could have just held sudden setback up and something. Boy. Now we just block a juggler, go to 1. No, can't even do that because they just suspect one of their creatures and I'm dead. Yeah, they just suspect the juggler. I can't block it. I block there. Take 3. All right, that's going to end the run. Still a solid one for the first time around. Going to be a 5-3 run in the money. Can't be unhappy with that. Just a little bit of a bummer. Never going to feel awesome to lose a game of Magic. Five and 3 it is. The detective agency takes us all the way to the money. Not much further from there, though. Solid stuff today. I am very confident we could have drafted and played better, but the set is brand new. I am brand new to the set. As for under and over performers, I mean, Snuffler didn't do anything, so that's probably the underperformer. It's just a 5-mana 4/4 we just kept discarding to Projector Inspector. For overperformers, I don't know. Maybe Agency Outfitter was also an underperformer. I don't think it actually ended up doing much. It was always just a little too expensive, a little too slow to show up to the party. I did like the Hotshot Investigators actually a lot more than the Agency Outfitter, so that was a little interesting. I thought Watchdog was going to be great, and it was great, so I don't know if I'd call that an overperformer, but it was a huge deal quite often. And then the Novice Inspectors as well. I thought they were going to be great. They were great. So those were awesome as well. I guess Case of the Gateway Express, probably the biggest overperformer here, because I was considering even cutting this because I didn't think we were going to be that good at getting a wide board state, but there's enough small creatures in the format. It's pretty easy to clear something out with this early. And when you can clear something out with this and give your whole board +1/+0, this card is wild. So this was pretty frequently good for us, so that was much better than I thought it would be. So biggest overperformer award goes to Case of the Gateway Express. Biggest underperformers go to the big dorks, Magnetic Snuffler and Agency Outfitter. But I mean, this card's hilarious. Look at him. He's got his thinking cap. He's got his magnifying glass. He's tutoring him out from the deck. It's super cute. We had to play around with it a little bit, but I don't think these 3 cards were particularly good. This one was great, though, as was everything else in the deck. Fuss and Bother, that's another big overperformer, because I thought it was going to be just basically using Bother in the late game, which we did in some of those later games on the defensive, getting those flyers to try to clear out some 1/1 flyers from our opponents or double block some menacing suspects, stuff like that. But turns out Fuss is very real. When you're in the lead, your opponent's going to be put in positions where they're going to have to make some blocks and try to trade their 2/2s into your 3/2s and stuff like that. And when you change that outcome into just winning every single combat with the +1/+1 counter, leaving behind a permanent buff on your board, that can be completely game-ending. I mean, we had one opponent just concede to Fuss on the spot, and it made sense. It was absolutely game-breaking there, so big stuff from these two. So overperformers go to the cheap, aggressive non-creature spells. That's maybe a little concerning if you haven't liked the fact that a lot of recent formats have been pretty aggressive, but it was a fun time all around regardless, and a very solid run at 5 and 3. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video and are interested in seeing more like it, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more new recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.